Good evening. I'd like to call to order the study session for the City of Wheat Ridge for October 17th, 2022. Thank you all for joining us. We have two items on our agenda items on our study session tonight. Item number one is a department project updates, and item number two is the 2022 budget updates. As we typically do on our meetings, we'll start with public comment on any item that is on the agenda. So either of these, item number one or number two, if you're a member of the public, you're invited to speak now. I don't have anyone here who has signed up to speak, but if you are joining us on the Zoom format, if you would please raise your hand in the virtual format, we will bring you into the meeting, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the council. Our city clerk is joining us remotely. I'm going to see if he sees anyone with their hands raised.
I do not, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And I don't see anyone at council chambers, so we will move past our public comment and go to our number one item, department project update. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have some, maybe some new staff members here that you don't see as often anyway. Maybe we should go around and do some quick introductions. Andrew, do you want to start and let everybody know? You've been in front of council once before, but and use a mic too. Make sure it's on, and you could pull over Val's or just introduce yourself and what your title is. That'd be great. And who you're representing this evening.
Hi, I'm Andrew McDonald. I'm the Forestry and Open Space Supervisor for the Department of Parks and Rec.
Thank you. Marianne, everybody knows Marianne, don't they?
Marianne Schilling, Assistant to the City Manager.
You do now.
Jeff Hurt, Senior Planner and Community Development, representing sort of the planning half of community development tonight.
And Ali Sheck, Administrative Services Director. Good evening.
Chris Murtha, Chief of Police.
Great, I think that's it. Yeah, and Steve Went. Steve, you're on screen.
Yes, good evening. I'm here.
Steve Wynn, Engineering Manager. Well, thank you. We are pleased to be here this evening to give you some updates on what's going on in the city. It's been a crazy 2.5 years, I've been telling people lately. A lot of things have gotten in the way of not just us, but just life in general. And COVID, of course, started March 2020. A lot of things in between, some unfortunate things. And most recently, as you all know, our ransomware attack. So, you know, I'm very proud, though, of the amount of work. I was talking to somebody today, an ex-employee. They were asking how it was going, and I said, you know, I think we've gotten more done during these traumatic events that are going on across the world, and personally here at the city. I think we've gotten more done. Very productive council, very productive staff. So. We wanted to tell you all about what we've been doing. I know we've had some light agendas over the last couple weeks and canceled a couple meetings even, but just want to ensure you and everybody in the public that we're very busy. Our plate is still very full. We're doing a lot of things, and very proud of the things we're doing. And we're gonna have, I think, a 14-page memo. We're not going to go through that word by word, but I've asked staff to be here. They're going to give some very quick verbal updates of the more important things in this memo. But let's give a quick update on what we're dealing with right now. We're getting through it, but our cyber incident we had a few weeks ago, so Ali's going to give a quick update on that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Goff. Good evening, everybody. Yes, we are, the final. Thinking back on the third quarter, the final month obviously was dominated with our ransomware event, and we're getting there. It's a long road to recovery, but we're doing well. We keep continuing to make progress. I think the most challenging thing right now is that we look completely normal, and for a lot of staff, they're trying to get as much work done as they were before all of this on a daily basis, and everything at the moment, we just run into these little roadblocks here and there that just are really frustrating for folks, but people are in great spirits and doing really well. We are actively at this point resourcing some additional areas of our recovery to get more help and to get us there a little bit faster. We're working on the lower priority systems, which are high priorities, but in the scale of things, they weren't the top priorities. So currently we're working on Laserfish and GIS. And all of that involves modernizing every system as we go. So as you know, we're building back better. We're not just rebuilding, bringing back what we had. So for example, in GIS, we were planning an upgrade for 23. We're doing the upgrade now. With Laserfish, we were planning an upgrade next year. We're doing the upgrade now. And we're just sort of taking care of business as it comes. So again, I'll just remind you, we're seizing this opportunity. We're upgrading software to the most recent supportable versions. We've designed a zero trust network, basically a network from scratch. We're focusing on good password, good end user practices. And again, I just want to say the Wheat Ridge team really came together. We still have employees. Councillor Dozeman was here tonight meeting with Kelly McLaughlin. Employees that are serving not in their normal roles, instead supporting the city through this. So again, we're making great progress. We have learned a lot. And I'd say we're getting closer and closer to finished.
Yeah.
Closer to the party. Thanks.
Very much. Great, thank you. And if you guys are okay, if we could, we'll try to get through this memo as quickly as possible and leave questions to the end, if that's okay. So the next, and things are organized in this memo, not necessarily by department, but kind of by themes, different areas. So the next section is the investing for the future bond projects, which we've been working on for several years, and you're all very familiar with. The bonds were issued in 2017. The Clear Creek Crossing project is moving along. If you drive by, you see the hospital's going up in record time. Their garage is going up. I was surprised when I drove by the other day. I hadn't been out there in a week, and there's a garage up. Lifetime Fitness is starting construction. You see some dirt work out there. They should be vertical by this November. 150-bed Hampton Inn is approved, ready to go. And yeah, the phase 2 of the apartments should be under construction very soon too. So that project's moving forward. Improve Wadsworth project. You all see that, of course, driving through. We're almost a year, I think, in a couple days. It'll be a year since that project started. It's moving along. Most of the work at this point has been utilities, so all underground stuff. I think for the general public, they don't understand that when you have a large construction project like this, a lot of it's underground. There's a lot of utility work, so it looks like maybe nothing's getting done, but most of the utilities have been replaced underground. I think it's delayed a little bit right now because of CenturyLink. We're waiting for them to get their fiber pulled, so it's unfortunately delaying it a bit. We're working towards the phase 2 part of the project. We've gotten some pricing on the phase 2 we're not happy with, so we're going to go back and negotiate. Our new public works director, who's not here this evening, but she is sitting down with all the parties involved and going to have a good conversation about some pricing on that project. So we'll hopefully bring that back to you soon. The Wheat Ridge Ward Station, you should start seeing some road improvements on 52nd Avenue, Tabor Road, and Ridge Road very soon. A IGA with Valley Water will come back to City Council. They're going to replace their utilities under 52nd while we're doing the work. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have final design done for the pedestrian bridge and the pedestrian plaza down to the frontage road. I think we mentioned in the last week or so, we got $8.3 million for Dr. Cog, some federal funding to help with that. So the residential development is going gangbusters up there. The apartment complex should be done soon. And the Toll Brothers and the Hanch Ranch townhomes are being constructed. Anderson Park has been completed for quite some time. That was the 4th bond project. Now we'll move on to your council strategic priorities that have been in place for a couple of years. The first big one is new efforts of engagement in government. Allie, you want to update on that one real quick?
Yes, thank you. And just as a reminder, this priority is to educate, engage, and involve residents in their local government. And we have a number of things going on right now to support the goal. But the thing I think I'm most, hopefully Chief, you too, proud and excited about is we've completed a reorg of the communications area, which I think while we didn't identify that early on as a priority, we certainly learned along the way that this needed to happen. So Of course, that involves bringing on Joanna Small, the PDPIO, and really focusing someone full-time on transparency and engagement, support the police department. I'm sure you're going to talk about that. We
Giving out
hired...
Halloween outfits.
Yeah, Halloween. If I'd known that initially, relationship-based policing is Halloween costumes, that would have made so much more sense to me back in the day. Now I know, yeah. We hired Amanda Harrison from, with such a great local government and nonprofit background. Amanda joined us in August. And then today was Devry Orologio, I think I got that right, its first day as a full-time employee. So we are now staffed up as a communications area of 3 people, which I think I see lots of heads nodding. We do a lot of communications work, and I think that will really bolster our efforts, and I believe that you will really start to see the fruits of that reorganization. We are still planning to unveil a toolkit for our boards and commission members. That will happen, I believe, at the appreciation dinner at the end of November. And then finally, we were very close to unveiling the new development map before our incident occurred. And of course, GIS is currently offline for a little bit longer, but my understanding is that project will be back on track quickly and will be close to release once we get GIS back in our fold. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Implementing bulk plane in all residential districts. You remember just recently, City Council passed that, so that item is completed. Re-examining and advancing sidewalks along 38th Avenue. Steve, do you have an update on that one, or do you want Jeff to handle that?
Yes, I do. We are in the process of consultant selection. We interviewed 2, and I think we're narrowed down to 1. So hopefully that will come through, and we start negotiating the contract, and hopefully we can take it to council either in November or December to award a contract with the selected consultant to get started.
And again, remember, this is the 38th Avenue portion between Kipling and Youngfield. We still will bring back a discussion with City Council to discuss Wadsworth to Harland on what council would like to do with that section of 38th Avenue also. Review the vision, mission, and funding of Local Works. We had that discussion. That item's completed. As you know, Local Works has a new executive director and is doing some exciting things. Streamlining the permit process is our 5th strategic item. And Ally, that's you.
Yes, just very briefly, we're close to, as you know, we're in the RFP phase for a new ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. We believe that in order to really get to where we want to be on delivering more streamlined permitting processes for the community, that we need different systems to help get us there. It's not the be-all and end-all, but it's a big part of it. So that's where we're investing our time and resources. We've closed the solicitation, and we'll be holding demos of 6 products in the month of November. So we hope to have an update later in the year.
Thank you. Commercial corridor code review is your 6th strategic priority. We haven't touched this one yet. We're hoping to bring this back early 2023, get further direction from council on what they would like to see here. But workload has demanded our attention in other areas, but we'll get to this one hopefully soon. Accessory dwelling units, that was completed. Ordinance was effective August 15th. We've received 8 applications to legalize existing dwelling units and 1 new ADU application so far. Develop solutions and work with partners to address homelessness. Mary Ann.
All right, well, you may remember that we had our homeless navigator, Rebecca Rodabaugh, and our housing navigator, Corey Kohler, here to give a big overview 2 weeks ago on our October 3rd session, so they went into great detail. But just in summary, since the program started almost 2 years ago, they've worked with over 166 people, and of those individuals, 15 people have exited our program into transitional housing and 36 into permanent stable housing. So really great numbers we're really proud of. Additionally, since they presented to you all, we did get the final information on where our severe weather shelter network was going to be located for the central region. And so our region for Wheat Ridge is going to be located at the Healing Waters Ministries, which is located at 6475 West 29th Avenue. Which you all should have received a very detailed email from our housing navigator with all those details. So looking forward to continuing our great work on there. But the big update was 2 weeks ago, so I'm not going to give you too much more.
And I did put in your email or your mailbox today, this afternoon. I'm not sure if you received it through another means, but it's a resource list. If you run into individuals that are looking for places to get clothes or food or different things to get a shower, there's a whole list of resources on there. So please share that with anybody that's asking. Now we'll move into a second category or another category of updates of what I called current studies and planning processes. We have numerous ones, as you can see that, these are kind of in the middle or coming to the end of the study and ready to bring back to council. But I think a lot of these items are going to provide a lot of information for you all to make policy decisions in the future in many different topic areas. The first one's affordable housing strategy, and I'll give Jeff to give an update on that.
So this is sort of the first of its kind strategy that the city's had. If you recall back in August, we did a fairly deep dive on sort of why housing's so expensive, et cetera. And we've been using your guidance from that meeting to develop a draft, and we have December 5th scheduled to share that draft with you, or at least key components of it. And then I can jump to the next one too if you want. So running on a similar track, 44th Avenue Corridor Plan is also going to be in front of you on December 5th with some preliminary recommendations.
Maybe a different, we might have to switch that.
Okay. Yeah, at some point in the near future, we're going to come to you with some preliminary recommendations for that corridor plan. There's a survey live right now on that project. Both projects, the affordable housing and the 44th Avenue, both have pages on What's Up Wheat Ridge if you want to take a closer look at those.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Open Space Management Plan. Andrew, you ready for that one?
Sure. So the Parks, Forestry, and Open Space Division is working with a consulting firm, Logan Simpson, on an open space management plan. So the updates are that community participation continued with virtual workshop and an open house event. We have a visitor engagement survey that's posted along the Greenbelt to try to understand people's visitor perceptions and how many visitor numbers we have in the open space. And we're also working on a Clear Creek Integrated Watershed Management Plan, which is with neighboring agencies such as City of Golden and Jefferson County Open Space. And I recently met with agency partners to begin work on that. That's aimed at better understanding, forecasting, and planning for water quality improvements and standards for the entirety of Clear Creek. And the group is in the planning phase, but we've been reaching out to stakeholders in order to map water quality projects across Clear Creek.
Terrific, thanks, Andrew. 38th Avenue street improvements. Steve, you got that one? Or Jeff? Oh, Jeff's got it?
So this is the project to look at improvements for bicycle and pedestrian access and safety on 35th between Teller and Sheridan. And so we had a good turnout of about 240 folks just nearby that weighed in on the survey. And so we're currently developing a concept for that. And here in about a month, it'll be ready for public sharing.
Let's see, great, thanks. And then Let's Talk, you want to jump right into that?
Right, yeah, so Let's Talk is in neighborhoods 7 and 8 of 10 now. And I think crazy. We're just knocking them out. And I think our numbers now, we have about 1,500 people that have weighed in for the program. And so those two neighborhoods are Southeast Wheat Ridge and Paramount Park. So currently we're analyzing feedback from about 300 residents in these neighborhoods to develop an action item list for them to kind of weigh in on and rank, slated to end the engagement blitz early part of next year.
Great, thank you. Ward Road Railroad Crossing. Steve, do you have any information on that, or I'd be happy to?
You can start and I can chime in if anything needed.
This is basically designing or investigating for a grade separation of the railroad tracks on Ward, north of 570, close to our TOD's center. As you know, that traffic backs up there quite often. Most of the traffic is folks coming from Arvada, I think, south into other areas. But we are receiving, I think the memo here says we were submitted an application, but I think we were just found out we are going to, or recommended to receive.
It's going to be submitted.
It's going to be submitted.
Recommended for submission.
Okay, it's recommended for submission funding, just around $2 million or less for study, environmental design work to do a grade separation there on Ward. One item that I thought about today that I forgot to include in the memo under planning processes and studies is our facilities assessment program plan that we're working on right now. We had some meetings today. Can you provide a quick update on that? Or, we hired Stantec to do a major facilities assessment of all of our city facilities. It got delayed a little bit because we decided to add the outdoor pool also to the assessment, and they're going to do that. Our outdoor pool has some issues with leaking and other things and boiler issues and stuff. So we want a really good assessment of that pool before we come back to council to determine what needs to happen to keep that moving forward. But they're in the process of interviewing departments and staff, trying to figure out what our space needs are, what our future staffing is going to look like. And they're looking at all kinds of different things right now. I can't remember what the time frame is. Do you? Okay. So that's one other thing. The next category I want to move on to is development updates. And, our new construction development, it does continue. It's starting at a pretty good steady pace. It's starting to slow down a little bit. I think we're projecting for less development next year. We're starting to hear out there also, especially residential development. A lot of residential developers are stopping. A lot of even projects kind of midstream. Some are slowing down, so we're going to probably see some slowdown in development growth over the next couple of years, depending on what happens with the economy and potential recession. But things are still fairly busy in the city. Lauren included some numbers in here. We had 1,600 permits issued year to date, inspections completed over 11,000. We've issued 82 certificates of occupancy year to date, and we have active permit applications of 245 in place today through October 11th. The cyber attack didn't really slow us down much at all. Permits, inspections continued. There was a little bit of wonkiness on the website, and there was a few things delayed, including Ms. Hutchinson's sewer line. Sorry about that. But there was probably a few of those, and we do apologize to our community. But for the most part, things kept moving fairly quickly through the system. A lot of development across the city. The Gold's market is receiving some certificates of occupancy. The Queen City Coffee opened in August. There's the Illegal Pete's should be starting construction very soon. The Esther's Tavern should open by, they're hoping Thanksgiving, I believe. M's Ice Cream's open. The running company's open. So a lot of activity there. We have 2 new restaurants coming in on 38th, a sushi place and Little Brazil that is currently in Gold's Market is going to move to 30th and Upham also in the apartment buildings there. So they're going to get a brand new, nice, large space. So excited about that. Did you have any updates on this? Did Lauren give you anything on this? There's a few, the Applewood Shopping Center, we should have a Chick-fil-A is in the works. And they should be starting construction there soon. Renewal Wheat Ridge is moving forward on a few new projects, and they've been working on a lot of projects the last few years, but they came to City Council a few months ago to talk about a renewal plan for the Lutheran Legacy Campus, and there was direction by council to move forward with that, so they are working on that. We have numerous TIF and STEP agreements for projects helping with sewer and sanitary lines. As you know, Urban Renewal Authority issued their bonds. We have a whole list of projects that those bonds are funding in the Kipling and I-70 corridors. Yeah, and just some more random developments across the city we'd be happy to talk about. Next category of updates is public improvements, and the first is 32nd and Youngfield Street bicycle and pedestrian and aesthetic improvements. Steve, you want to do that? I can jump into.
Sure. Right now, we're working with DEA to execute the contract agreement. Hopefully, it should be back in our office here within this week or so. And at the same time, we're planning on a kickoff meeting for the project here in the next couple of weeks. So we hope to get going pretty soon.
So to summarize that, that project is really going to focus on the Youngfield corridor all the way from the I-70 Youngfield off-ramp, and then also all the way down to 40th. Two different phases. One is ped bicycle improvements on 32nd under I-70, but the second part of the project is major aesthetic improvements along that corridor with landscaping, signage, lighting, new fencing. It's all in CDOT right away, but they are working with us to make some major improvements to that corridor to make it look much nicer. The Wadsworth sidewalk from 32nd to 35th. Steve?
Sure. As you are aware, we got awarded with Dr. Cook board action. So we got the funds for the project. So hopefully between now and year end, we'd like to get the IGA secured with CDOT. And then on to early next year, we're looking at seeking a consultant for the design. And hopefully that will occur in the first quarter of 2023. That will be a good project. And also we're combining a CDOT initially planned for the traffic signal improvement at 32nd and Wadsworth. We talked about and we pitched it to CDOT. It would make sense to make a project more meaningful, that we want to include that signal with ADA improvement at the intersection to combine with the project. So I think CDOT agrees to that. And so that's going to be our project scope to include that intersection as well.
Thank you, Steve. Lena Gulch floodplain project. If you remember during our ARPA funding discussions, council agreed to provide some funding for some floodplain mitigation along the Lena Gulch between Sims and Swadley. I believe it takes 14 houses, if I remember, out of the floodplain. So that, not sure if that's, Steve, you have anything further on that?
Yeah, I think part of that funding too is we are seeking fund as a fund partner from Mile High District. And so we have to work with them to include their portion of the funds into their 5-year CIP. So we're working on that. Once that's established, we should be able to know the date, which project, when we can proceed with that project.
Thank you, Steve. Do you want to move into the neighborhood traffic management program?
Sure. The program has been very active. Since beginning of the year, we have held about 7 to 8 meetings with the neighborhoods. And among most of those, we already have developed a neighborhood mitigation plan and have sent out to the resident for their consideration. And we have received 2 more that we are doing data collection, and pretty soon we'll organize resident meetings to meet with them. And also, we'll be likely to retool the program next year, and we'll bring update to council hopefully in early 2023. Other than that, the program has been received strong interest. Look at street to help out with the speeding issues.
Great, thank you, Steve. The next couple items are just our annual Public Works street pavement maintenance. We've completed most of those for the year, so some major, you've seen the overlay and slurry seal and street striping done this year. 44th Avenue bridge repairs. Steve, do you have any update on that?
Yeah, we're proceeding along nicely, and I think we'll anticipate a completion date sometime in November, so that will be good to wrap it up before the winter.
Great, thanks, Steve. And then on 38th Avenue, we received another CDOT Main Street grant, which in $70,000, it's going to help us reconstruct. If you can picture it, the sidewalk area in front of Clancy's, it's kind of wonky on the south side of 38th. It's going to make that more accessible for pedestrians, and then we're also going to install enhanced crosswalk at the intersection of Reed and 38th Avenue. Back to some parks, forestry, and open space. Andrew, Prospect Park Phase 2. I think some of you were at the grand opening this weekend.
Yeah, it was a good turnout, especially from the pickleball players. So the Phase 2 is nearing completion. Grand reopening was on Saturday. Richards Hart Estate and Sod House, with funding from State Historical Fund, recently wrapped up planning and assessment work and is midway through monitoring timeline for the Sod House. Both projects will inform preservation and rehabilitation work in the future. We're working with the School of Mines on a more permanent trail around Tabor Lake, and they're nearing completion of the planning phase for that project, which will be approved by an engineering firm.
And they're
we-
going to come in, the School of Mines is going to come in December? I
Yeah,
think,
that's right, December 5th.
give an update to
I
council.
believe if you have time. That's the plan, and they'll present on that. We have a fire mitigation project, I know, which is on a lot of people's minds for the Greenbelt, and we're working with the Mile High Youth Corps on that. We're also looking to get funding for even more fire mitigation work in 2023. Prospect Lake, we did experience an algae bloom, but we've been working on water quality improvements for Prospect Lake, aerating the water and adding fresh water, and we've since restored the balance there. We still have the signs up, by the way, you might see them there, but that's just out of an abundance of caution. We had a big National Public Lands Day event on September 24th with about 150 volunteers. That was working with Jefferson County Open Space on a large scale open space cleanup along Clear Creek. As far as education, the nature play area at Anderson Park was completed this summer, and there was a grand opening celebration for that as well. Fitness court was installed at Panorama Park in mid-September. We had a ribbon cutting for that on October 13th. Let's see. And the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center closure week was completed during the last week of August. The facility received a fresh new look with new paint, new carpet, and new furniture in the lobby. And that's about it for parks, major parks projects.
Great, thanks, Andrew. There's a few other items on there you see in your memo. Our recreation activities are really gearing up. We'll talk about that a little bit in our budget update too, but we're close, I think we're getting close back to normal pre-COVID, but a lot of activities in our active adult center, our performances in the park. I think we had our largest, biggest year. Aquatics, as you know, we struggled to get employees, and all of our high school students are back in school, so unfortunately we're not going to be able to offer some swim lessons this fall and winter that we like to do. We are going to propose a change in the 2023 budget with hiring of more full-time lifeguards that will stay year-round, which we hope will help with some of these shortages. But for the most part, a lot of our rec activities are back to pre-COVID levels, so that's great. Sustainable Wheat Ridge, Marianne?
All right, the Sustainable Neighborhoods Program just wrapped up year 2 of the certification year. So we just had Applewood Villages and Paramount Heights achieve outstanding neighborhood status for a second year in a row. We also had Panorama Park achieve participating neighborhood status. And the program is looking to add 2 new programs in 2023, so be on the lookout for more information there. In July, the Sustainable Neighborhoods Program hosted the 2nd annual paint recycling event at Anderson Park in conjunction with Sustainable Wheat Ridge, the Sustainable Neighborhood Network, and Green Sheen, and a total of 30,744 pounds of paint were diverted from the landfill. So great news there. New news, or fresh off the press, is that we will be hosting our 3rd annual yard waste event, November 12th and 13th at Anderson Park. So this is going to be leaf drop-off, small sticks, your leftover pumpkins. They can all be composted at Anderson Park, November 2nd, 12th, and 13th from 9 to 1. More information will be coming on that soon. And then finally, in April, you may remember we had a staff member present to you all regarding residential waste options for our residents. Council directed staff to work with a consultant and create and implement a robust public outreach and engagement strategy so that you all could better understand what our residents want, what their concerns are. And so we are working on that right now, and we anticipate bringing a proposal to you all by the end of the year.
Great, thanks, Marianne. Moving on to our landscape inspection program, Jeff.
Thanks. Yeah, so this is a relatively new program that we piloted before the pandemic and kind of reinstated this year. This is essentially, I think, twofold. One is enforcement of approved landscaping plans to make sure everything's staying alive and according to plan. But then also, it's been great because it's been proactive, and we've seen a lot of developers and property owners that don't have the resources for a landscape architect get help from our program in terms of water smart landscaping, things like that. So I think so far this year we have about 60 sites that we've supported through this program.
Great, thanks. Tax and licensing, Allie.
Yeah, thank you. I'll focus mostly on the special licensing programs that council implemented, but It was a busy quarter with over 180 new licenses issued. So that's both brick and mortars inside of the building, inside of the city, and then remote sellers from outside of the city. But we've been heavily focused this quarter, sorry, I've got an errant hair here, on special licensing programs. So starting off with short-term rental licensing, we're now well over a year. August was sort of the one-year mark of at least collecting tax on short-term rentals. And then, of course, we started implementing the cap last fall. So districts 1, 2, and 4 have now reached their whole home cap for short-term rentals. And so there's separate wait lists on the website. So if people go to the short-term rental page, they need to add their name to the wait list. There's separate lists for each district. And the reason we're doing that is that it's quite a process for a homeowner to sort of go through and get everything that they need to submit proof of ownership, et cetera, that we issue codes codes for the system only when we know that there is one available. So we cap it, and then as we do renewals and more become available, Megan will start working her way through the waiting lists. So there are still whole home left in District 3, but otherwise we are capped. Tobacco retail licensing, it was an active quarter there because the police department did the first round of compliance checks, and that ended up, if you recall, that happens twice a year. And from that, we actually had 9 businesses who were found to be had sold to underage buyers. And we did our first sort of process of bringing them in and having that conversation. So we were much more active sort of in tobacco retailing this last quarter as well. And 2 licenses were actually deactivated. The business owner decided to move to a different city. Shall I speak to hotel licensing?
Do it.
This is sort of a real collaborative effort. So a big team of us are working on hotel licensing and, to really moving this towards full compliance and a really great place. So I'll start, and perhaps at the end we can all chime in. But we've been working, we've got 2 teams working separately and together. Marianne is working on the team of sort of the human services with Family Tree and crime prevention resources to sort of see how things are how we're doing at providing services for the folks who have been calling the hotels their homes. We have another team that are really focusing on the elements of the ordinance and sort of that enforcement. So this is an extremely difficult process. We're learning a lot as we go. It's a difficult process due to the price and availability of housing stock, but we are making really great progress. So currently, all 8 of the city's hotels are properly licensed. 2 hotels are in the process of applying for extended stay addendum, which by upgrading properties to add appropriate space and amenities will allow them to offer stays beyond 29 days. So that cap for the 29-day went into effect, went into effect on September 30th. So we just had a good meeting with the hotels. We're working together to compassionately provide assistance while doing our best to implement the intent of the ordinance. So that's been a big focus. And then I'll wrap up by talking a little bit about personnel. We've talked a lot about the Great Resignation, this sort of hot employment market. We're expecting pretty high turnover this year, about 16%, certainly below our industry standard, but still high for us, up from 9.7 last year. So this last quarter, we filled 9 full-time and 15 variable positions. We, as you know, have been working on the city's response to the state's paid family leave program, and we have refined an internal Wheat Ridge paid family leave process that we're looking forward to bringing you. In fact, we'll be back here on November 14th to talk more about this. We've set up employee educational opportunities to help employees really understand it. And then finally, we are working on switching benefits brokers so that we can provide greater choice of health care to our employees, which is really important. Will certainly help attract and retain great employees for Wheat Ridge, and will have an impact on you all as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie. Chief, you want to move on to public safety?
Sure. Thank you. For public safety, I'll go move through these items relatively quickly, but I just wanted to remind council that 5 things we focus on internally at the police department are training, supervision, relationship-based policing, you've heard that before, proactivity, and our internal family atmosphere. And then as command staff, we focus on communications, transparency, trust, and connections to our community. So as I move through some of the things we worked on this quarter, you'll kind of pick those themes out. But in public safety, and this is in no specific order, this year we had several high-profile events. One of them was Officer Alan Fisher, who got stabbed repeatedly and nearly lost his life in the line of duty, which invoked some thoughtful responses from our training staff. We undertook tactical combat casualty care training. It was a very high-level training put on by doctors and with realistic actors, and some people got sprayed in the eye. I saw somebody get sprayed in the mouth. They didn't like it, but it was realistic, and I think all the officers really, I think they took a lot away from it. If we didn't have somebody on scene that night with advanced casualty care, we might be having a different discussion today and a different outcome. We continue to train at the highest levels. We sent half of our firearms instructors, 8 of them, to an advanced firearm instruction academy. Our West Metro SWAT team members, we went through another school with our SWAT team. Not everybody gets selected for SWAT team, but we have many members who are working in patrol every day who are SWAT trained. So if the bad thing happens, we're ready to respond to that. 2 of our Commanders Hunt and Pickett, attended the SMIP, Senior Management Institute for Policing, which is a high-level, master's level type of course for commanders. That really rounds out almost our entire staff at that academy. We have 2 sergeants attending Northwestern Advanced Supervisory Training School coming up. Our Wheat Ridge cadets, I think we have about 12 or 14 of them, attended a week-long competition in Western Colorado University in Gunnison during this last quarter. We also trained officers in our civil seizure procedures per the ordinance that this council was inclined to pass on street racing. If you remember the ordinance, we have seized our first vehicle and we're going through the process now. Street racing was exactly what they were doing with donuts and other really aberrant behavior. Officers were able to capture that vehicle and take it, and we're working through the process, and we look forward to seeing the results of that. But we know that in the community, people know about that. So they're staying away from Wheat Ridge with that type of behavior. We talk about new equipment. This last quarter, we purchased a new radio system for the city of Wheat Ridge. We studied a lot, and we thought for a while we were going to be spending several $1 million. Made Mr. Goff gasp every time I came in his office. We were actually able to select the current provider that we have, and we really got a deal on these radios. We paid $340,000 for what ultimately would be $1 million radio system because they want to expand their footprint here in Colorado. So being thoughtful and looking ahead, I think we've got a system that's going to last a good 20 years. We added more patrol shields to the police vehicles to protect officers when they have to go into an active shooter scene. We also added other equipment such as breaching tools and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where some of the money is spent. For relationship-based policing, our group continues to meet. We continue to push that out. We continue to get feedback from our community. We think the feedback is pretty good or very good, depending on how you look at it, and we're pretty happy with that. This year we were busy with a lot of events. We were busy with a lot of crime. Crime is down, make no mistake about it. In the middle of that, we assisted with the Carnation Festival after several high-profile attacks on different gatherings and events and parades. We certainly did our best and created an operational plan that I think was very successful. I believe this was the first year in memory that we didn't have any calls for service during the Carnation Festival, so we feel really good about the way that came out. We talk about, connecting with our community. We had our National Night Out, as you all know, and we held those in the different communities. We continue with Coffee with a Cop. Hops and Cops was an event that we had that was held at Clancy's, which was a lot of fun. We have cops in the community, and we continue to do things. This last weekend, we had Halloween cops and costumes with cops, I think it is. our new public information officer is very forward-thinking and put this together, really a credit to her. And we had between 90 and 100 families and over 250 costumes that we gave away. We ended up at the end having to turn folks away because we just didn't have the capacity anymore. So we felt we made a lot of connections and we did a lot of good and we served a lot of people. So we're very happy about those kind of events. That's just an example of many of the events we have. Our recruitment continues to be strong because of I think because of the people who work here. They're our greatest salespeople. We have 3 in the academy. We have 3 in field training who are graduating this week. We have 1 that entered field training today to start his field training. We have 3 more in the academy, and we have so far 3 selected for the next academy with a couple more final interviews to be done there. So we're good in as far as our recruitment goes. The cyber impacts were, as I lived through 2.5 years, Mr. Goff alluded to 2.5 years of chaos. It's been management by crisis, but never once has there been a shift that hasn't been covered by the women and men of the Wheat Ridge Police Department. Never once have they been unable to take a report or do their job. So I'm so proud of what they do every day, and I know they represent the city very well. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Well, that's just really a summary. I mean, that's on a day-to-day basis. I mean, there's much more going on, right? We're doing our daily jobs, but these are a lot of the priorities and projects that council has directed us to do, and just want to make sure you knew that they were still moving forward, and happy to take any questions that you may have.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Goff. Great report. We'll start with Councilor Stites.
Thank you all for a great report, and you guys have done a fantastic job all the way through. The communication staff is doing a phenomenal job. I get calls and texts, and I talk to people all over the place, from Arvada all the way through the public information officer for the PD, the Facebook updates and stuff like that. They're funny, they're witty, they're informative. She's doing a great job. Chief, I just had a quick question for you about, because we get a lot of calls about auto theft. Where are we kind of at on that? Because I know that's kind of, I know crime seems like it's down, but I know the auto theft seems like it's up a little bit.
Yeah, the auto theft is not down in Colorado. It continues to be a problem statewide, and we continue to hold pretty steady on where we are, which is just about, quite frankly, average for the area. Really, our biggest concern, or our biggest part in the auto theft is the recovery of stolen vehicles. We find that the hotel district and area seems to be a place where they just end up from all over the region. You know, we may get, I'm guessing from the daily reports, but 10 or 20% at the most from Wheat Ridge, but they're really from all over the rest of the metropolitan area. So it continues to be a battle. We continue to try and inform people, but there are certain models that are just very easy to steal, as you probably know, and there are certain types of activities that people engage in that make them vulnerable to auto theft. So we continue to see that in Wheat Ridge too.
Miss Weaver just asked, what are the models?
Miss Weaver? I thought you said
Miss Weaver did.
Miss Weaver.
I would say that right now Kia is very high on the list, and some of our trucks, especially Silverados, are high on the list as well.
You just said that.
I know. I was thinking of 5 fridges when I said it.
Yeah, I just saw it. There was just an article today somewhere, the top 10, and I think 3 or 4 of them were Kia brands, and yeah, the Chevys, the Silverado. Yep.
All right. Thank you, Chief. You guys are doing a great job. Appreciate it.
Okay, Councilor Rome.
Thank you, Mayor. One question I had was, what's the status of that brewery and bowling that was going to go into the Golds?
Yeah. Slow High. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that, as that's one of the other retail establishments going into the Golds Market, and they are. We saw the Golds folks at the Business Awards the other day, and they said it's still moving forward. It's a little slow. Some of them, you know, I think there was some, you know, supply issues and contractor issues, and I think for the Legal Pete's, as an example, they had some fire issues. They had to put fire sprinkler in. So I think it's a lot of that. All of it's still planned to come. Just don't have a date yet.
Okay. And then I have some questions for Andrew on the the fire mitigation. What are kind of generally, are you guys doing thinning or?
Good question. Well, there's a lot of dead material, so a lot of it involves removing that. We do leave some for habitat. And then it's a lot of it's based on species and then diameter and just general thickness of the area. Some areas are basically overgrown. Naturally, they would be thinned out by low-intensity fires on a regular basis, but because we have to suppress fire, we have an abundance of fuel that's built up in the greenbelt. So it's not as high-risk an area as other environments across the state, but as we saw with the Marshall Fire, anything can happen if conditions are right. So to answer your question, basically it'll look like a thinning of a certain percentage of the trees, especially in the area around Johnson Park and Otis Trailhead, where it's really thick vegetation.
Okay, and then the other question I had, speaking of fires, the fire that we had this summer at Anderson Park, it appears that there's a couple trees that definitely got burnt. What's the assessment? I know there's probably like 2 trees that looked like they got definitely burnt from that fire. Everybody knows the parking lot fire.
Yeah, we did do some pruning, but we're kind of just letting those trees recover. I think that they will recover.
Okay.
They might look a little bit, might have some dead-looking branches, but we are keeping an eye on it. So that's all I could really say. Yeah, that was a challenging time with those brush piles there. So,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Additional questions? Mayor Pro Tem Holteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just an incredible thank you to staff for both preparing this and providing us this update. I realize, when we show up at these meetings, we get these things that are happening in process, but I think it's really valuable to step back and just see what the city's doing as a whole. I think that's important in part because a lot of these things come back to us, and so having the context is good. And when we've been recovering from a hack and, and a pandemic, it's just incredible what's being achieved. And I just want to specifically call out that is in the face of, I think in this time period, almost every director in the city turning over as well. So it's just really exciting to see how we're having a good run and doing amazing things. A couple things, I know it wasn't called out specifically in the update, Chief, but we are in year 2 of our massage license program. And if there are any updates on that, I know that that's been, we were excited with the first update we got, but if there's any updates on that, I think it would be good to hear. And if we can get them tonight, great. And if not, a follow-up would be really appreciated.
I can give you a general overview as an update right now and get some more specifics, but we've really come to the point where I think we've actually removed all the bad actors or most of the bad actors. We keep a close eye on the new establishments that have moved in. I think there was one on 44th across from Pipeline Car Wash over there. We keep an eye on that. But other than that, we've seen a lot of almost perfect compliance. We continue to do our checks. I'll tell you, I will go back and make sure that I haven't missed anything. But as far as I know, we haven't found anybody else in violation since we sort of cleaned house on the bad actors.
Fantastic. Well, that's a good policy success story. So let's hope that continues to act as a deterrence as well. And then I just wanted to make mention, this probably comes up in budget as well, but just as a liaison for Sustainable Wheat Ridge, they are looking to update their master plan next year also. So I just wanted to mention that because I think that touches on a lot of things we care about here. But just kudos to staff and Allie. I just want to it felt like a lot of things kept coming back to you. A lot of that, we're improving the system, we're getting that done. And all of this is in the face of an incredibly difficult retaining and hiring system. And we are getting extraordinary police officers. We are getting new lead staff members. And I think my closing point is, it didn't really hit me till tonight. So I work for a small nonprofit that has when we're fully staffed, we're 17 people. And we have 3 communications people on our staff. And they barely get the job done. So it just really struck me at what an extraordinary job we've been doing with 1-ish, 2-ish in the last year. And now that we have 3 and it's starting to really show up in other places, but I just want to call out, like, 3 is still not enough. I mean, it is, because you guys are doing a good job, but when I think about what my organization does with 3 and what you guys are doing with 3, I think just goes to show what good quality people we have working for our city and in our city, and I'm really proud of that, so thank you.
Additional questions, comments? Pretty full meeting. Great job. I think it's a great report. It's really pretty amazing when you look around at all the things that we're doing, and all the things and the wide range of things that we do in the city. Great job and great report.
And really what's to come, as Councilmember Holteen mentioned, Sustainability Group has some plans ahead, but as part of the budget, we're proposing a new comprehensive plan for the city and an economic development strategy. And a lot of these things we updated you on tonight will continue with recommendations that come out of those reports. So kind of a hint to you, please don't add another list of items for maybe the next couple of years. We have plenty to do. We'd like to do them well. So one reason we brought this forward this evening, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for, council's been awesome, and the last 2 years also. And we wouldn't have got any of this done without you all, so we appreciate your support and everything you do.
This is other than the things we have on the wings.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so that concludes item number 1.
It does.
Let us move to item number 2. This is the budget report through August 31, 2022.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Ally and I will tag team this a bit. We City Council adopted this year's budget, projecting a 4.8% increase in general fund revenues. I'll tell you where we're at right now. And an 8% increase in expenditures. You remember our 2021 budget was very conservative coming out of COVID. You did allow us to add some back mid-year, which was very helpful. But as we always try to, we always shoot for unrestricted reserves of 25% in the general fund. And we did that, and we continue to do that. So where we are right now, we just got the September financials too. Today, was it today or Friday? But the report that was in your packet was through August, but I'll have a couple little updates through September, and it hasn't changed a whole lot. Expenditures are up in the general fund, about $2.8 million through August. That's 12%. But again, keep in mind the 2021 budget was really conservative financially. The 2022 budget included about $1 million increase in compensation adjustments for pay performance, police department steps, and market and equity adjustments. And we also approved 8.375 full-time equivalent positions in this year's budget. But some of the larger increases, community development is seeing about a 35% increase in this year's budget. Most of that, probably all of that, is for our contract with Charles Abbott, our building inspections. It's about $400,000 more this year than it was last year at the same period. That's just because of all the development and growth that's going on. It requires more of their time. The good thing is Ken negotiated that contract. The more work they do, the less we have to pay them. They're receiving a lower rate on a lot of the work because we're giving them so much work. Parks and Rec is up about 22%, and as I mentioned before, a lot of that was because rec activities are back after COVID, and we're more fully staffed in a lot of our temporary employees across our recreation programs, and so that's a good thing. It's not that it's up 22% over our normal period, it's just up 22% over COVID. Police department is up a little bit, 12%. A lot of that is more fully staffed in patrol and investigations. We've had some equipment purchases, some of our fees to some of our outside agency groups, like our victim outreach fees are going up. General government, just about a 7% increase. We increased our contribution to the Carnation Festival quite a bit in some of our outside agency nonprofits. In 2021, the city did not give the $300,000 that they usually give to the Urban Renewal Authority on an annual basis. We did not give that to them in 21, but we do have that budgeted in 22. So that's part of that increase also. So expenditures overall are up about 12% over last year at the same time. Looking at revenues, our total general fund revenues are up about 6.3% compared to last year. It's almost $2 million, so very good thing. We're still seeing revenue increases in many different line items. One of them being sales tax still. We're up about 5.6% through August over the last year. Let's see, I think I wrote some. And through September, it's about the same. It's about 5.5% through September, so that's staying pretty steady. And as you remember, I mentioned earlier, we adopted the 2022 budget projecting a 4.8% increase. So we're seeing a higher sales tax increase than we estimated, which is great. Our other tax revenues is up about 22%. That's primarily due to some increases in our franchise tax from Xcel Energy. That's probably because their rates have gone up so much, so we see a portion of that. Telephone occupation tax, our lodger's tax is pretty close back to normal, I think, from COVID, and even some of our admissions and amusement tax. So people are out and doing more things, so we're seeing more revenue from that. Our use tax revenue is actually down slightly compared to last year, but that's just because last year was such a big year with the building use tax, with all the construction going on, the hospital and other things. But we're still probably, 2022 is still going to be probably a record year for building use tax from all the construction that's going on. And then same with the license revenue. It's up about 46%. Most of that's from building permits, again, associated with all the growth and development. Intergovernmental revenue, and if you have questions about what's in these different categories, we can go through that. It's up slightly about 4.5%. We, mainly because of grants we've been getting, and the county road and bridge funding that we get from Jefferson County was up a little bit compared to last year. Our service revenues is up about 15%, and again, that's mainly from the recreation activities and fees. Our rec center, active adult center, our outdoor pool, even with the shortage of lifeguards, a lot of those activities are just up again, and we're seeing the revenues from that. Our fines and forfeitures are continuing to decline. They have been for numerous years. A lot of that is, some of that's due to we weren't able to staff our traffic division in the police department, but there's also all kinds of other fines that the court issues that have nothing to do with the police department that are down for numerous reasons. Other revenues is down a little bit, 3%. That's just because we received a large reimbursement from Lutheran last year for the master plan that we did for the campus. But we didn't get that this year, so the revenue's down. Our city treasurer is here, and through September, I think, though, that we're actually seeing an increase of 123% in other revenue through September. A lot of that's because of interest that we've been gaining. I just filled out a survey for Colorado Municipal League, and they ask a lot of questions about revenues, and one of them was on interest, and I think we were projecting it was 1,000% increase or something, and they called me and said, "Is that right?" I said, "Yeah, it is right." And so you can thank our treasurer for that, staying on top of that. Interest rates are back, and we're seeing significant revenues from that. And I guess that's kind of really just a general overview. I was going to turn it over to Allie to talk about our spending on our ARPA dollars that that council approved.
Thank you, Mr. Goff. Yeah, just real briefly, you remember back in April, we talked about what to do with the increase in our revenue because of the 7.8 million and 8 and change from ARPA, and you all gave us some good direction on what to do with that money. So in your memo, you just have a little bit of an update that of the 7.8, we expect that we will have spent about 1.5 million by the end of this year. So I wanted to really report that things are going well. We are implementing the programs that you asked us to. In fact, I just saw the other day that you have the 2 telephone reporting unit staff hired and on board, which is exciting. As you recall, that's an offset to help sort of reduce crime. keeps officers on the streets by manning the phones, so to speak. So we'll have spent about half of our COVID mitigation and prevention money by the end of this year, which of course, that's what it was designed for. Assistance to households, which is a lot of our housing and homelessness initiatives, is just really sort of getting started, and a lot of that is currently the funding is going towards the homeless and housing navigators, but also the family tree program for the extended stay guests of the hotels. Food insecurity, we are just about to issue our first payment to Community Table, behavioral health care. We are partnering with Jefferson Center. I'm really excited. We have a meeting this week to learn more about the specific programs that our community will have access to through our funding, and we'll get all over promoting that. We just learned, actually.
Yep.
Do you want to give a quick update on that?
Sure, yeah, I met with the interim principal of the Wheat Ridge High School, great guy, if you haven't met him yet, but their clinician is on board that we're using ARPA dollars for, so they're very, very excited about that. We were worried they weren't able to find somebody. They were having trouble hiring those positions for different schools, but they found one for Wheat Ridge High School.
Yeah, so again, unexpected for this year. We thought that would happen next year, so we're very excited about that. Preventing and responding to violence, that's additional funding for victims outreach, as well as the telephone reporting unit staff and equipment. The parks projects, Councillor Hutchinson and Mayor Starker, you were at the fitness court opening this week. So the $187,000 you see spent between last year and this year for parks projects is there. And has everybody had a look at it? It's so cool. Mayor, you did a pull-up, chin-up? Regular workout, you know? Yeah, it was impressive. There's photo evidence of that. Yeah, it was really great, yeah. So that's done. And then next year, we will fund actually all the other parks projects. So playground replacement, the Tabor Lake Trail, Andrew, right? We'll kind of get that sort of, let's see, there's a playground replacement. There's some really fun things happening. And then finally, the Lena Gulch will kick in. I believe it's in 24 and 25 is when we'll actually be spending those dollars. So we're well on our way. Thank you.
Thanks, Ally. And then finally, as I mentioned before, City Council's policy on general fund reserves is to maintain or target a 25%, which we attempt to do on an annual basis. At least we bring an adopted budget to you with 25%. We typically go over that by the time the fiscal year is ended because we're fairly frugal with our dollars and conservative. And in 2021, the ending fund balance was actually 37.8%. That's just because we spent about $3 million less than we budgeted, and we brought in about $11 million more than we expected for numerous reasons. Really, the development going on in the city. There was just so much use tax and construction activity that was bringing in revenues, and a faster return from the pandemic, really. So doing very well with our fund balance. We are projecting, we're still working on the 2023 budget right now, getting back to it here. We're projecting a fund balance at the end of this year of about 32.2%. So some extra money to carry over into next year's budget, which is always helpful. So we'll take any questions that you may have on that.
Excellent questions. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple questions are we doing any, with the green ash, the emerald ash borer, are we doing any mapping, and do we have any type of plan as, I don't know what the current status is. I know it's probably in Wheat Ridge at this point.
We did do a large-scale treatment of all of our city ash trees last summer, summer into fall. And that involved a basal spray, which is a spray on the outside of the bark. We still have not found any EAB in the city of Wheat Ridge, but we can likely assume that it's in the surrounding area. So we do have funding for next year for further spraying, but that's our program. And you've probably seen our signs, our green signs on the ash trees around the city.
Yeah, because I noticed that the city of Denver is, I think my understanding is that I think they're kind of shying away from the treatment and looking at a longer term replacement with their green ash.
That's true. We're not focusing on planting new ash trees. That is one thing we're doing. We did put 140 new trees in the ground this season, and that is partially part of that program, is to renew our urban forest with more resilient tree species.
Thank you, Andrew. And then, do we have in the budget those air quality signs that we talked about?
I'm sorry, I missed.
The air quality signs, the LED, yeah.
Yeah, I asked staff to look into that. I think we did put some money in the CIP budget. Just a placeholder. We don't have an exact number yet, but we did put a placeholder in,
Okay.
so we can talk about that during the budget.
And then, are there any, this is for the chief, do you have any plans down the road for an additional plate reader?
We, by way of grant, we had installed, I think it's six, maybe it's 5, at fixed license plate readers up in and around Kipling and I-70. So our officers are training on that, some have been trained, some are training on that. We have one mobile license plate reader that's mounted on a vehicle. So they get alerts on their computer once they go through the training that a vehicle close by has either been stolen or whatever. So, and they also use that for vehicles that are used in criminality to see if those vehicles have come through there as well. In addition, we have one that we partner with Denver with on the Sheridan border as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions? Mayor Pro Tem Holteen.
Thank you. I don't really have a question. This is helpful as we go into our actual budget meeting here shortly. And the statistic at the end about just how successful we are with managing our money as a city. Just hope we all remember that we can brag about being ahead of our budget when we do a good job with our money, and when our community members tell us we're not doing a good job. We've got the math to prove it. So just want to thank good management, and we're being prudent and getting a lot done at the same time. So it's a good balance and good management. Thank you.
Mr. Knopf, we have a budget, or not a budget, a bond program that's sort of closing down, and where are we sort of on that?
It is, yeah, good question. We probably should have included an update in here. Ally helped me out here, but I think we're projecting if you remember, the bond program allows us to generate $38.5 million with the half-cent temporary sales tax, or in 12 years, whatever comes first. I think we're estimating that in 2024, we should reach $38.5 million. So in 7 years, 8 years, but instead of 12. And yeah, most of the projects, the funding is all, the $33 million that was generated from the bonds has all been spent. We still have debt service, which is, I think we have, I don't know if Chris remembers the debt service, how many more years we have on that? Not many, 5 or 6 years, I think. Through 27 is what the final debt service payment on those bonds. So council has a little bit of options there. I think we could look at paying those bonds off sooner, or just continuing out with that schedule. But we've talked about having another discussion about potentially expanding or extending that temporary sales tax for another bond package. And we're shooting to potentially do that before this temporary sales tax expires in 24. So next November's election would be the ideal time if the council chooses to do something like that.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff on item number 2? Great report. Great to be in solid fiscal condition. Let's put it that way. Great feeling. So many programs and so many things going on. Anything else from council on this item? Oh, you guys are really efficient. Thank you. Well, that concludes our two agenda items. We go to staff reports. Mr. Goff.
I don't personally have anything else. Does anybody else? Staff? We have several staff members. Chief, you have any updates on anything that went on today, maybe, or anything?
It's a quiet week, and like we'll be on.
Part of having a good PIO is that we put our stories out there, and they get picked up by all the local news media because it makes it very easy for them to do a story on that. So that's kind of the good and the bad tale there. Today, we had an incident that occurred, started at around 37th and Sheridan, I believe, or at least that was the first report of it. I happened to be in the area, so I went out and looked, and there was a vehicle stolen. I don't know if anybody has looked at our social media, but the video of the vehicle actually being stolen is on there. The owner came out, saw his vehicle was being stolen, and tried to prevent that. We encourage people not to do that, but that was his prerogative to do that. And that vehicle continued on. He eventually became dislodged from the vehicle. The persons who stole that had another vehicle in tow that was part of their criminality, and they went down Sheridan, struck another car, abandoned that vehicle, and got in the getaway car and fled. I believe that vehicle was spotted by Denver, but we could not pursue it. So there was a woman at the second site who was crushed and broke her leg, but she'll be okay. She had actually, in an effort to avoid being struck, jumped on the trailer, which was it was like a landscaping type trailer, and she had to jump on that to get out of the way of being run over. And so she was on for a ride for quite a few blocks. So it was kind of a scene out of a movie, if you will, and it was quite chaotic, but I will say our officers just, like they normally do, they cut it into pieces and figured out how to manage it and get things organized and get everybody the help they needed and get eventually get the roads open, but do a thorough investigation before that happens. So that was today. Over the weekend, we had an incident at one of our restaurants. If you saw that, that is somebody that is very well known to us. That person is in custody right now, and they are in jail. We're following up to try and make sure, because this isn't the first time we've had a very similar MO from this person, and it's really causing a lot of havoc and causing some nerves. I did speak to that business owner at length today, and we talked about some options there and how we might move forward as a group together. So we've been busy. There's been a lot of things going on in the community, but like Mr. Goff said, we continue to do work in crisis. So I'm really proud that our officers get out there and handle everything from the small calls to the big ones. The TRU folks will really help us to be able to focus on these type of incidents. And so that's a thank you for authorizing that, and we finally got the right two people to take those positions. So we think that's really gonna help keep our visibility out in the streets there. Terrific. Thank you.
Nothing else, I don't think, unless Ally or anybody or Jeff?
Okay.
Nope.
Terrific. We'll go to elected officials reports. Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Thursday, the 20th, is Porchlight Family Justice Center's first Be the Light Gala. You can still purchase tickets at porchlightfjc.org. And I'll be really excited to see anybody who comes along to be a part of that celebration.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be attending the Wheat Ridge Police dinner on that same night. I was fortunate to go to the ribbon cutting with the mayor and Councilmember Stites and Councilmember Hutchinson at Prospect Park on Saturday. Had a really good turnout. It looked like people were getting a little antsy about their pickleball times, and I was happy to say that I could step away from that and Director O'Donnell was dealing with the people with that. But it looked really successful. I think, it's really disheartening when you spend that many millions of dollars and nobody shows up. And this was quite the opposite. This was everybody was there. I can tell it's going to be very well loved, and we're probably already short on pickleball courts. I think that's a good thing. And that'll really kind of re-energize that space. I feel like that space was kind of a little dark and there wasn't much activity. And now there's lights there too, by the way. And I feel like that area is going to kind of make that area more activated, which is a good thing. On the bad note, I've noticed in my community a lot of graffiti going on, primarily around 41st in my neighborhood, just right next to Wilmer Davis, all over the place. And I wish I could say it was just in, District 2, but I've noticed it over like on Dudley, which is outside of my district. Somebody was doing it on the concrete pans. I reported some graffiti over on the tunnel underneath Kipling to Patrick. The other night, I had my window open and I heard some, sound like paint can shaking, and so I jumped out and there's 4 teenagers, and I tried to kind of go out and see what was going on, but they kind of ran away. They were knocking on doors, so it's hard to say. I'm not, did they have a spray campaign? I don't know. Maybe they're just messing around, but everybody's got to stay on top of it, and get that graffiti off and kind of keep a watchful eye. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Stites?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Passing around a letter there, but I'll echo what Councilor Ohm said. Saturday was a lot of fun. The new courts and the new park is looking great. Thursday, I had the opportunity to join the mayor at the ribbon cutting for 2 new District 3 businesses. PB Run Co., which is a really phenomenal running store, and then Queen City Coffee, which is pretty phenomenal as well. They've got really good products there. Councilwoman Nosler-Beck and I finished up the letter that we discussed a couple of weeks ago. That's what I passed around, or that she passed around here. I put the changes in with the we, the undersigned, and then I put in the paragraph about the Futures Conference in there as well. So hopefully we can get maybe 1 letter today signed by all the council members that want to sign it, so that we can take it to the meeting on the 24th, and we'll also email it to all the board members as well, the school board members. So, thank you.
Counselor Nosler-Beck?
Just want to make sure that people come out for trunk or treat on Saturday, the 22nd, and I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it was from 4 to 6.
That's good.
4 to 6.
Yep.
So it should be a lot of fun, and I think there's still opportunities for you to donate candy, and also even sign up to be another trunk. So consider that. It's a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to see everybody's costumes that I think they might have gotten this last weekend. Thanks.
Counselor Dozman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple of updates. Speaking to the letter and Jeffco School Board, there is a meeting this Thursday. Regular business meetings are at 5 p.m. in the boardroom of the 5th floor at the Golden location. If anybody wants to come and speak about the school closures, that would be a good time to do so. Plus, our public meeting is October 24th, and it begins at 5:30. And all 3 schools will have a public hearing. I wanted to also congratulate Peak Expeditionary School on their first RAD bike race on their public bike park that's on the school grounds. This last Saturday, we had a huge 80s dance party, bike parade, and then each of the kiddos that wanted to race were able to race, and some adults were as well. We had a couple of local businesses there. Flow High, which did the, or Flow Ride, which built the bike park at Peak, and also Rhythm Cycles from 44th Avenue were there fixing up bikes for the students. And so we really appreciate them coming out and showing up to have a good time. And then last week, I was able to take a tour of the new hospital with the Lutheran Foundation Board, and it is really coming along, and all of the updates that they have done in just a matter of a few weeks. It's amazing. So much is going on that at any given time it looks completely different. They were talking about the prefabricated bathrooms that are built off-site and then plugged into each of the patient rooms, which is saving about 3 months of time on the project. So it's completely innovative. We have a great A team working on everything. It was very insightful, and it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful state-of-the-art hospital. So with that, thanks everybody, and have a good night.
Can't wait. Thank you. Additional public officials matters. Okay. Councilor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I did attend the fitness court opening, which I thought I would wait till the crowd left before I did the fitness thing, try it out. And then also at Prospect Park, I can't tell you how beautiful that is. I mean, I think a picture would be great to take, you know, like, of the water, and you can see the mountains behind and everything. I mean, it's just beautiful. And, yeah. So, and as far as pickleball goes, I took a class a couple years ago and spoke to the lady, and you still have to be careful with pickleball. There can be some injuries, okay? But driving down Kipling, I've talked to a couple people about how beautiful the trees are at Discovery Park. They are just gorgeous. You know, I mean, it's like green, red, orange, some yellow. I have never seen it look so beautiful. So I just really appreciate that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Steve, yes.
3 quick things. This Thursday, the 20th at noon, there will be a public hearing before Judge Basso at noon in the council chambers to focus on the protests filed by those who circulated an insufficient petition to refer 1744 to the voters. The meeting is open to the public. Ballots dropped yesterday, so your ballot is in the mail. They say it may take as long as 4 or 5 days. 2 years ago, it took a day, so we'll see. The last thing I want to talk about is the minutes from August 22nd through tonight. Those have been delayed for the obvious reasons having to do with cybercrime. My plan at this point is to send all members of the mayor and council, as well as the key staff, I'm trying to think through this cold medicine, the management team, so that all of you can review the minutes. I believe there are a total of 8 of them, going back to August, what would that have been, 26th? No, 22nd. Once you have made back your comments before the November 14th regular council meeting, I will post those minutes, send them out to the list of people who have asked to get copies of the draft minutes, and then we can hopefully approve those minutes in mass on November 14th. So look forward to receiving all of those minutes to review. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Does our treasurer have anything tonight? Mr. Miller? Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Holteen.
It was not dawning on me, and all people should have this in mind, that we're not meeting for several weeks. A lot of things are happening, but I'm just going to call out one. On November 7th, which is Election Day Eve, Local Works is actually hosting, they're revamping Pints and Policy. I'll just say it's not as awesome as when I ran it. I was focused on fun. They're focused on facts. But it's, I wasn't not factful, but the focus has just shifted more towards facts with them, and I was a little more into the fun part. But anyway, I think it's going to be a really informative panel. I unfortunately don't have the details right up in front of me, but it's a lot of good information on things that are on your ballot. And in case you're not like me, who has their ballot in the mailbox or in the ballot box within an hour of receiving it, if you are looking for some more in-depth information on ballot initiatives, the Pints and Policy hosted by Local Works on the 7th will be very factual, informative, and I will make sure it's fun if I'm there. And then actually on the 8th of November, we for Deep Dive Club are hosting post-election pumpkin pie in Festivus, in which we all air our grievances and find our peace after Election Day, so we can leave our differences behind us and move forward as peace-faring neighbors again. So that will be at 7 o'clock at New Image Brewing. There will be pumpkin pie. We do make it fun. We do have a competition of reading off ballot initiatives. We have a bracket, and there's a great prize for the winner, who's the fastest ballot initiative reader in the city of Wheat Ridge. So we hope to see you guys there.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Anything else? Yes.
The Broncos are currently winning. We should probably go home. Go Broncos.
Okay, well, I don't want to jinx anything beyond what I already do. So, thank you very much. Thanks so much, Mr. Goff and all of your staff, Ally and Chief and all of our, Mary Ann and Jeff and everyone that came. We got great things going on in our city. I was blown away last week. I went to two ribbon cuttings for two great projects in our park. We had two great businesses over at Gold's Marketplace opening up, and there's just a lot of excitement and vibrations. It's good vibrations all around the city. So thank you all for all that you do. As you travel around our city, please do so carefully and watch out for everyone who lives, works, and plays in our city, and lets everybody get home safely at night. So with that, we'll stand adjourned. We will not be back here until November the 14th. So party hardy.